Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings and my weekly radio show, Operation Freedom, is to provide you information the bought-off, lamestream fake media will never provide. Join us at davejanda.com. We have a tremendous amount of free content. We also have the subscription content, 30 cents a day. Check it out. We have some information in that regard. What I want to touch on today is what really happened with the Iran deal. You're never going to get this from the fake media. Let me give you information that I received through my sources behind the curtain, because I believe they paint a much different picture than what we're seeing from the bought-off, lamestream fake media. Number one, the deal, the Iran deal from 3 years ago under the Obama administration was never signed. Greg Hunter, great work with USAWatchdog.com. We also have an interview I just did with Greg that's on our website at davejanda.com. Check it out. When we discussed this in the interview, but Greg has been spouting this for months, and he's the only one. He came up and documented it, that the deal was never signed. So all these folks that have said, you know, Trump walking away from the deal makes the U.S. look illegitimate and that we will walk away from any deal. Well, that might be true if the deal was signed, but it was never signed. How do we know that? From Obama's own Assistant Secretary for Legislative Affairs, Julia Freifeld. She sent a letter to Mike Pompeo, who before he was Secretary of State, he was director of the CIA under Trump, and before that he was a congressman from Kansas. She sent him a letter telling him that it was not signed. It was never a signed deal. It was an executive order. It was, I don't know what do you want to call it, a memo? It never went in front of Congress. In fact, I don't know of anybody in Congress or anybody outside the Obama administration that ever had access to it to look at it. So it was a memo that was never signed, yet when Trump said that he was not going to go along with it, rightfully so, it was a freaking memo. Kerry, the former Secretary of State, went rushing over there in a panic. Well, first of all, who was Kerry representing? If he was representing the United States, he wasn't asked to do that, and Trump said we had nothing to do with him going over there, then that's a violation of something called the Logan Act. That's a criminal offense. So what if Kerry says, well, I wasn't representing the United States? He hasn't said that, but let's say he does. Okay, then who else were you representing? Some other players in the agreement? The UK, France, Germany? Well, if so, then Kerry should have filed papers saying that he was an agent representing a foreign country. I've yet to see those. So then if he wasn't representing them, the only entity he could represent was the globalist syndicate that he's a card-carrying member of, just like the Bushes and the Obamas and the Clintons and the Romney and McCain and Graham and Pelosi and Reid and Schumer, Ryan, all of them. So he was representing the Rothschild-Rockefeller axis. Potentially, if he wasn't representing the U.S., he wasn't representing the other players. So then the question is, well, why did he go over there? What were his purposes? Well, maybe one purpose was to stir up international discord against Trump. I mean, we've seen Obama doing that. We see Clinton doing that. Both Clintons doing that. He could have been going over there to try to undermine Trump because the fake Russian dossier and the fake Russian collusion thing didn't work. So maybe they could try to spin some international discord and have that effect and have their mainstays, their bought-off puppets in the media pushing that here in the United States to get people all riled up. Maybe that was one reason. But another reason from my sources are that there was a $150 billion payment. And we know that because Obama admitted that. And also, there was a cash portion of that. Supposedly 1.5, 1.8 billion. But my sources tell me it could be tens of billions of dollars in cash that actually was transferred. Now, if you go to davejanda.com, one of our free interviews at the top to show you what we do with our Insider Insight show was with Bob Mazur. Bob is the former undercover agent who brought down, for the DEA, who brought down Pablo Escobar and the Medellin drug cartel, along with his team. And I talked to Bob about this, and Bob said, well, you know, I think Kerry was just trying to preserve his legacy and the legacy of the Obama administration because they really didn't do much internationally, and if this thing falls apart, then they got nothing. But he goes, you know, the cash component gives me a problem because, you know, cash always gets lighter when you bring it into a country. In other words, people take graft, corruption. It's easy. It's cash that just gets spread around. Now that's where Bob stopped. But I talked to some other folks behind the curtain, other sources I've known for many years, and said, so why did Kerry go there? Well, he was trying to push animosity develop between that they're all mad about it, and that hopefully that would gin up some people in the United States and get them mad at Trump because the Russian thing didn't work. But what they also said was that the $150 billion, actually tens of billions of dollars, was in cash, and that money was laundered to people into accounts. They tell me that it involved Obama, Hillary and Bill Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, George Soros, the European leaders, John Kerry through his wife Teresa, reportedly, so that's what they're telling me, and also into the banking community. The banksters are always involved. So, one purpose, stir up discord. Second purpose, try to tie up some loose ends to make sure nobody was going to talk about where this money went. And the third, and by the way, lest you think that that's conspiracy theory, how about this? An advisor to H.L. Ansari Zarif, the deputy for parliamentary and Iranian affairs within Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, specifically threatened to expose every corrupt official who accepted bribes to make the Iran deal happen 3 years ago. Quote, if Europeans stop trading with Iran and don't put pressure on the United States to get back in the agreement, then we will reveal which Western politicians and how much money they had received during nuclear negotiations to make the Iran deal happen, end quote. Not conspiracy theory, fact. And by the way, right after that guy came out with that statement, UN Chief Nuclear Inspector abruptly resigns as Iran Foreign Minister embarks on global tour to salvage deal. You wonder, maybe there was a little... just days after President Trump announced the U.S. withdrawal from 2015 Iran nuclear deal brokered under Obama, this from Zero Hedge, the UN's top nuclear inspector has abruptly and unexpectedly resigned after a tense week in which Iran's facilities have again become the focus of the organization's mission. Veteran nuclear weapons inspector Tero Verjanta announced his resignation as chief inspector of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, effective right now, but didn't provide explanation, only citing, quote, confidential personal matters, end quote. Yeah, you think? Goes on, the move comes just days after U.S. President Donald Trump announced the United States would withdraw from the 2015 Iran nuclear accord designed to keep Tehran's atomic weapons program in check. The Vienna-based IAEA is the UN's top nuclear watchdog, which coordinates in tandem with UN decisions and directives and hasn't been shy in stating its official position of finding no evidence showing Iran to be in breach of the nuclear deal. Well, it appears that this guy got cold feet and ran for the hills. Purposes of Kerry's visit. Sow international discord, gin up the American public against Trump. 2, cover for the $150 billion in the money laundering that occurred. And then there's a third thing that I had no idea with until my sources told me. That apparently there was a deal within a deal of the Iran deal. And the deal within the deal focused on drug trafficking. Right after Trump became inaugurated, he targeted Colombia and their drug production facilities, Central America, South America, and Mexico. The DEA reportedly has been working overtime taking down production facilities and has made a big dent in them. Reportedly, part of the Iran deal, according to sources, involved a drug trafficking where drug production facilities in Iran were part of this deal. And that the drugs flowed from Iran to Central America, South America, Mexico, and ultimately in the United States, obviously adversely affecting our society and our citizens. Which is why when Trump says, getting rid of this Iran deal is going to protect Americans. Yeah, because the drug trade is adversely affected in this. So reportedly, according to sources, Kerry spoke to the Iranians about making sure that the drug trafficking deal was still in place. Understand something else. I've been given this information that at the same time Kerry went over there to speak to the Iranian officials, Obama went to Colombia to speak to the other end of the drug trade, to calming them that the supply would continue, as I understand it. So, Kerry's purposes. Sow international discord. tie up loose ends on the money laundering activity out of the $150 billion, of which tens of billions, according to sources, was actually in cash that was laundered to officials throughout the world. And 3, to ensure that the deal within the deal was going to stay in place. Look, folks, the bottom line is that we have to keep our eyes wide open and our ears wide open. We can't rely on the bought-off lamestream fake media that are just part of the globalist syndicate. They're not going to deliver any of this information. Alternative sources are the key. What we're being told about the Iran deal in the bought-off lamestream fake media is drastically different from what really is occurring. I believe when all is said and done, the United States is not going to lose stature by walking away from this memo that was never signed. I believe if we would have stayed with it, the ramifications were severe and significant. 1, the drug pipeline would still be in place. 2, there were areas of Iran, as I understand it, that could still produce nuclear material that were not being monitored by the monitoring organizations. So we would have the potential of nuclear weapons being developed, even though there was supposedly was this agreement that prevented them from being developed. And number 3, the ending of this agreement exposes a huge number of players within the globalist syndicate that were getting kickbacks, monetary kickbacks, from this agreement. I think the ramifications of ending it, and Trump is talking about renegotiating it. So if he renegotiates a deal that exposes the people that criminally benefited from the deal, and if he ends this drug trafficking deal within the deal, and then relaxes the sanctions, but we have a better monitoring system both at public facilities and military facilities in Iran, I believe the entire world wins. If you'd like more information in this regard, watch the interview we did with Greg Hunter at usawatchdog.com. We also have the interview on the homepage at davejanda.com. Take a look at our other content we provide. As I mentioned before, a tremendous amount of free content as well as subscription content, 30 cents a day. Best bang for the buck in all the internet. Until next time, this is Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail.